Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Dulles Regional Chamber of Commerce and our Candidates Forum, again organized by the Dulles Regional Chamber of Commerce. I am Danny Vargas, former chairman of this chamber, and we would like to welcome our candidates. A round of applause for our candidates. This is the race for Senate District number 37. The incumbent is Senator Dave Marsden, and his challenger is Mr. Jason Flannery. As we have been doing, we will do 2-minute opening remarks from our candidates. We will begin with our challenger, Mr. Jason Flannery. Mr. Flannery, if you can take 2 minutes to provide the audience with your opening remarks.
Thank you very much for inviting both of us here to be able to talk with you this morning. My name's Jason Flannery. Briefly, I am a veteran of the Marine Corps. I run a small business here in Centerville, and I have had the pleasure of working within the business community for the last 7.5 years. First as the head of a technology association that worked with members of Congress and businesses at the federal level, and then as the head of the vice president, rather, of the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce, and advocating on behalf of businesses at the state and local level. And now I run a business, and I'm in the for-profit world and working to make sure that our business has the opportunity to succeed next year, even more so than it did last year. And we are an up-and-coming small business, and it's been an incredible opportunity to take part in this process. One of the things I think that we have to have more of in our government are folks who have business experience, who've balanced budgets, who've made payroll before, who understand that the government can have a really positive impact on businesses and families, or it can have a very negative impact on business and families. And my business experience, my military experience, I think best prepares me for Richmond and for handling a lot of the issues that impact our area. We're so focused in this region, since we are the economic engine for the rest of the state, of making sure that our businesses remain competitive with those in Maryland and D.C. Burdensome regulations can stifle growth. Making sure that our businesses can remain competitive, grow, invest in their own businesses, and produce an environment that will allow us to continue to be the economic engine has got to be the priority of this race, and it's certainly my priority. Everything that we can possibly do to create a better platform off of which our business community can thrive and grow, prosper, and succeed, that will encourage others to want to come here and participate in this process as well, which will continue to make Fairfax County the best place to work, live, and raise a family. And I'm excited to be a part of that process, and thank you all so much for allowing me to come here before you this morning and talk with you a little bit about my ideas.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Flannery. Senator Marsden, 2 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having us here today. I'm Senator Dave Marsden, and I currently represent the 37th District, which runs from Bull Run all the way to Lake Barcroft. So it takes up a large swath of Fairfax County where people have very different opinions on how to solve some of the problems we experience today. But I was born in Alexandria, raised in Annandale, actually raised in the original Woodburn Elementary School. So I saw the world change very dramatically. As a young boy, men would come by and say, "Can I come in and look around?" I went to school here in 1897. As a child, Gallows Road in the Beltway was Powell's riding stable. So I've seen the changes that we've gone through in Fairfax County and have lived through our efforts at dealing with growth and expansion and the growth of business communities. I went to Randolph-Macon College, came back, worked for 30 years for our juvenile court, ran our juvenile detention center for the last 17 years. And as I like to say, when didn't get anybody hurt or let anyone out I wasn't supposed to, I was appointed by 2 governors, Governor Gilmore and Governor Warner, to be Chief Deputy and Acting Director of Virginia's Department of Juvenile Justice. I got there in 2000, right in time for the end of the dot-com boom, and we had to cut $35 million from the agency that I ran. It was a 2,700-person agency that took care of 1,455 kids in a correctional environment and ran probation and parole statewide. And we learned right then and there about how to do the cuts, how to do things the right way, which is to take a look at evaluations and make sure that we're evaluating programs properly so that when it comes time to cut, we know what to cut. When it comes time to create a new program, we know what works. That's the science that is in place and what we need to use to make decisions. I work for a small business. It does federal contracting in the juvenile justice area, and I work with communities all over the country to reduce youth gang violence and to help target kids who are the most significant dangers to their community. So I want to thank you again for having us here today and to have this debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, first question to you. I think the key concerns of many of the constituents here in Northern Virginia can be summed up in three main words: jobs, jobs, and jobs. Tell us your thoughts on what it is that you can do in your role as a state senator to be able to promote more jobs being created here in Northern Virginia for the benefit of all of our communities.
Yes. And when you're in the state Senate, you have to take a more global and statewide view. Certainly, we focus here on Fairfax County and the businesses that operate here and need to be successful here. We are the best state in the country to do business, the best managed state, and I'm proud to have been part of that over my over 30 years in state and local government. But I think some of the things that we can do clearly is creating green energy, getting offshore wind going in Virginia. We can also, and I've been working for the past few years, trying to get urban pollution under control to keep nitrogen out of the Chesapeake Bay, which deprives the bay of oxygen. If we can get, and we've worked very hard at getting urban pollution under control. We now have, I worked this past session to get farms to create their own voluntary nutrient management programs so that we can improve the health of the bay, because the fishing industry there is dying. But we can create jobs by merely reducing the pollution in the bay. There are thousands of people there willing to get involved in the industry, willing to pull those creatures out of the water and sell them to us. We need to advance the new college down in the Martinsville, Danville area. The new college is one that can create jobs. It can create a place for kids to stay in the community and go to school and be able to afford it, taking pressure off our other colleges and universities. So there's a tremendous amount that we can do. The thing that we can do mostly here in Northern Virginia is to make sure that we fund education. Schools are the reason that people move here. It is what supports our home values, because the business community has confidence that Fairfax County takes education seriously. They'll locate here, expand here. People will compete for our homes, raise their values, and put a downward pressure on our property taxes.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Flannery, response to the Senator's remarks.
Jobs in the economy is the #1 issue in Virginia today. We've got to make sure that we have elected officials in office that understand that understand how businesses grow, how we can continue to make sure that we are prosperous in Northern Virginia, because we are the economic engine for the rest of the state. We've got to make sure that government gets out of the way of businesses. We've got to make sure that we're reducing regulation. We're keeping our taxes low. We're enabling our businesses to remain competitive with those in Maryland and D.C., because every day they're trying to take business away from us, whether it's with our government contractors, our hospitality, our tourism industry, you name it. And so we've got to make sure that we have folks who have business experience, because they have the relationships with other folks who also run businesses, and they can work with them to make sure that the legislation that we're passing out of Richmond has a very positive impact for our region rather than a negative one. And Dave and I would agree on many of these issues, but we're also going to disagree on some of these issues. You know, last year, several years ago, Dave voted for a bill that would allow a business to purposefully fire a legal citizen, tax-paying citizen in Virginia, to knowingly hire an illegal to allow them to be able to fill that job for a lesser rate. That doesn't create jobs. In fact, that, quite frankly, encourages those to come here and to participate in Fairfax County in a way that doesn't foster job growth. It doesn't provide us with that ability to make sure that the businesses that are going to come here in Northern Virginia know that they've got a great education system, a great transportation network, and that we as a state government are going to take every step to protect them and promote everything that they want to do as a member of our community in Northern Virginia. And until we start having more legislators from the business community, folks who have that experience and want to participate and share that experience with the other legislators from around the state, you know, we're going to get more of the same. And what the same is good, but it's not great. And we need to make sure that we have great things coming out of Richmond, and that's exactly what I intend to do.
Senator, if your name was mentioned, so I'll give you 30 seconds for a response if you'd like one.
Well, that's a bit of a stretch on the bill on illegal immigrants, but I'm very much in favor of E-Verify, making sure that we hold businesses accountable for who they hire, to make sure that they want to check. And unfortunately, the state chamber has resisted that because they feel it's an impediment to their businesses. But the immigration situation is serious. Jobs are serious. We want jobs for citizens here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and the best way to do that is to get them involved in having to E-Verify the legal status of the people that they're going to hire. That's the way you best deal with controlling an issue that's a very emotional and difficult issue for all of us here in Northern Virginia.
Okay. And Mr. Flannery, a question to you. We talked about jobs, and we talked about education. Education typically falls in the area of K through 12 and higher education. What we haven't talked about is workforce development and training, which we know in this environment are folks that are looking for jobs need to make sure that they have the right skills to be able to get those jobs, particularly veterans and particularly folks that have been long-term unemployed. Give me your thoughts on the importance, the role of workforce development in the Commonwealth.
Workforce development is an incredibly huge issue and an important one. It's one of the reasons I think why I've been endorsed by the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce for my very pro-jobs approach and pro-business approach to how we solve and address these issues in Northern Virginia. We've got to make sure that we are educating those at every level who want to continue to learn, continue to take part in the jobs of tomorrow here in Fairfax County. It starts in the K through 12. It continues whether it's in military or trade education, whether it's a trade school, whether it's a higher education in a 4-year institution or a community college in a 2-year institution. But we also have a lot of folks that are moving to this area because their economies aren't as good as ours. They want to make sure that their kids continue to have a better opportunity in America, and they choose to move here to Virginia, to Northern Virginia in particular. And they want to be able to enter the workforce here in Northern Virginia, but we've got a lot of high-tech jobs, we've got a lot of government contracting jobs that they may not be well suited for. And so we've got to make sure that they have the opportunities to be trained to enter the workforce, even if they're not coming right out of college or high school. And it's one of those key components that we have to make sure that businesses are playing an incredibly important role in, because they need to have a seat at the table. They're the ones that are going to be hiring folks regardless of their experience and background. And until we start again, electing business people who understand the value of the workforce development process as well as the higher education process, we're not going to position ourselves to really fill those jobs of tomorrow. And in order for us to look at what Fairfax County is going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we've got to start taking those steps now.
Thank you. Mr. Flannery, Senator.
Clearly, the Higher Education Opportunity Act that we passed this past year will be a big part of that, because it does stress STEM education. It does stress over the next 15 years adding an additional 100,000 college graduates to Virginia and our business environment. I feel like the community colleges are the place to start, where we start filling the needs for talented, skilled people, so that when businesses locate here, they'll have training programs in place that can fill the jobs that they want. We also need to keep people here in this country that we educate who are brilliant engineers and scientists and technical people, and to keep them here in Fairfax County, to keep them here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and make sure that we don't have that talent pool going back overseas. We need to keep them here doing the jobs that we need, so that businesses are attracted to Northern Virginia. And it's all a big package. It's K through 12 education. It's the fact that one of our significant advantages here in Fairfax County is the fact that I think we have the better higher education system than the state of Maryland, than the state of West Virginia. That's why businesses want to locate here, is because their executives, the people that they bring to the jobs here, want their children to go to our colleges and universities. And that is a critical piece of how workforce development can work here in Northern Virginia.
Thank you. And Senator, the final question goes to you. We know that Northern Virginia is the center of the universe when it comes to federal government contracting. And that's created many, many jobs here in this area, and it's boosted our economy, making it one of the envies of the entire nation. However, when it comes to government contracting at the state level, we've fallen behind when it comes to government contracting by small, women, minority-owned businesses. And that's something that has been attempted to be addressed over the years, but has fallen short. What would you do as a state senator to address being able to get small, women, minority-owned businesses getting more government contracts at the state level?
You know, it was my hope that eVirginia, the online contracting system and purchasing system here in Virginia, would improve that dramatically. But it's still an issue, and I get calls from people all the time on that issue. How do I break in? How do I get a state contract? How do I get involved in state government? I'm a woman-owned business. I'm a minority-owned business. They seem to always go back to the same contractors, that they have always had. And what I've done is I have a contact over at Booz Allen Hamilton, and I try to get who's in the small business area there to get them hooked up with the private sector in Booz Allen, who does who does federal contracting, who does private contracting, military contracting, and to give them an intro into into that environment so that they can improve their opportunities to get involved in contracting here at the state and federal level. But it is a problem. It's one that we need to address here in Virginia. I ran a state agency, and I know the frustrations that people have. And one of the things we're looking at, and I've sponsored a bill on, is best value contracting. In other words, not everything is best price. That we need to take in a number of other considerations in terms of granting a contract, and this will give small businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses an opportunity to compete more effectively than just dealing with someone who can always come in at a lower price because they've been in business longer.
Thank you, Senator. And Mr. Flannery, if you're going to respond to that comment as well, and maybe include comments in terms of bundling of some of these larger contracts and decoupling some of the portions of them that can be more competitive for small businesses.
Certainly. I think one of the great things that we have in this area is we have a history of providing government contracts and services for those contracts, and we do so in very creative ways. You know, sometimes it is larger businesses that a portion or percentage of their entire contract is dedicated to fulfillment of that is dedicated to smaller businesses. And they work in tandem, in partnership with a lot of other folks who are just breaking into the government contracting service community. We've got a great opportunity to be able to bridge that gap between the federal government and the services that our businesses provide there, and enabling them to do so at the state level as well. And especially with the type of the type of contractors that we have here. You know, for 7.5 years, the business community fought to change a single practice in Virginia. And what it was is the true object test. What the state government did is they went in and they said, what is the majority purpose of every contract at the federal level? Is it services or is it goods? And if it was goods, then they taxed the entire contract at a 5% sales tax. 51% of the entire contract was goods focused, so the entire contract, 100%, was therefore taxed. Virginia changed that practice because it made our businesses less competitive with those businesses in Maryland and D.C. because they only taxed the percentage of the contract that was actually dedicated to goods. We finally got that changed thanks to the Department of Taxation because the General Assembly was unwilling to actually move that issue forward. But I think if we can take that sort of approach with our government contractors, continuing to make it as an incredibly competitive marketplace as we can possibly make it at the federal level, it will flow down and provide us opportunities to have incredibly well-qualified folks who have the experience, who've bid and been awarded contract after contract here in Northern Virginia, and they can apply those same services to those down in Richmond so that we continue to make sure that government improves upon its efficiency, that it's providing services better tomorrow than it has been yesterday.
Thank you. Did you want a response? Are you good?
No, that's okay.
Okay. So we're at the point now where we can receive our closing remarks from you all. And Senator Marsden, 2 minutes for your closing remarks, please.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for having us here again this morning. This has been a really, really good experience, and thanks to the folks here at Cox. Experience is the critical thing in these critical times that we're going in. But experience isn't everything. It's what you do with your experience. It's what you do with your qualifications that make things happen. And I think I've been very, very successful down in Richmond and very effective getting things done. I wrote our blended sentencing law in Virginia. I created a program for non-support to make sure that non-custodial spouses solved the problems they had to keep them out of jail, to keep them from being penalized for not paying their child support, and getting them to pay their child support, helping their children, and getting involved in their lives. Doing this with a grant that went away after 1 year, but that today it started with 4 jurisdictions, now there's 11. That's the kind of leadership that we need in Richmond. It was a $3.9 million a year expense, and that's been coming down ever since we got involved in this program. The big things here for Northern Virginia are solving our transportation and making sure we get education funding back into the system. I worked hard to prevent the freezing of the CPI and making sure that Fairfax County got its $61 million, and the Senate worked very hard with the small surplus we had last year to get $75 million back into local education because of the critical role it plays in attracting businesses to Northern Virginia and getting people to want to buy our homes and making sure that it protects our home values. I think some of the big things we need to work on here, I voted to accelerate the governor's bond package from 6 years to 3 years. And it did that on the promise that Governor McDonald would put in a long-term transportation fix, and we have to hold him accountable to that this year. We need to make sure that that fix is there, because in 3 years we will have no longer have transportation money, because we need that money to create a rapid bus system on 66, to be able to put separated grade intersections on the Fairfax County Parkway. And these are the issues that I want to get back to Richmond to work on, so I ask for your vote this coming year for this 37th District Senate seat. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Flannery.
Thank you all so much for allowing us to come here and speak before you today. Experience is exactly what matters in this race. We need someone that has business experience, that has legislative experience, that has the ability of going down to Richmond and addressing the issues that we face the most here in Fairfax County. I've been endorsed by the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce because of my strong pro-jobs platform ideas and experience. I manage the day-to-day operations of a small business. I know exactly what business leaders are having to deal with on a day-to-day basis. We need folks in office that are going to be more responsible with our tax dollars. We need folks that are going to vote against building a new General Assembly building that costs $350 million so that it sits there vacant at 10 months out of the year rather than only being used for a small period of time. You have some very clear distinctions between Dave Marsden and myself. And the experience of making sure that we have business leaders that can work with others in the business community to create jobs, make sure that we're investing in our transportation infrastructure, and that we're taking very proactive steps as a state to ensure that more kids from Fairfax County can get into the school that they qualify for. I've run into parent after parent while knocking on doors, and they said, Jason, I've got a child with 3.6, 3.7, 3.8 GPA. They play 2 varsity sports, they're on 5 club teams, and they can't get into Virginia Tech or James Madison University. That's got to change. We need leadership in the Virginia State Senate that will go down there and will address the issues that we face as a community, because we want our kids to relocate here. We want other businesses to relocate here, and we want the businesses that are here to stay here and to remain competitive in this marketplace in the metropolitan Washington, D.C. area. And the only way we're going to do that is by electing someone who has both the business experience and the legislative experience that they need in order to make sure that we're doing exactly those things in Richmond. And that's what I intend to do, and that's my background and my experience, and I would ask for your support on November the 8th. And thank you again for allowing us the time to come here and talk with you this morning.
Thank you very much.